Hey everybody, I thought I'd bring you along for just a regular flight. Promise there's no clutches on my engine that's giving me trouble, no burning, melting holes in gas tanks, just a nice morning cruise. This one's a little different. I went to Oklahoma for a kind of a quick weekend trip, took my paramotor along like any good uh, paramotor guy that's addicted to flying. Had one chance to get out in the morning, and so I took it and get my lines clear in the morning. It was a really low wind situation, which makes sure, and some dew on the ground, so the wing was going to get little bit heavy, a little bit harder to get up, and I knew I was going to have to run faster to get going. So get the lines cleared, make sure everything's good, put a little air over the wing, get the air moving so that when I do pull it up, it'll come up into that airflow that's kind of been set up by the motor, pop up a little bit easier. It's one of the tricks to doing it. And of course, you got to get going. Nice thing about, if you don't know paramotor, nice thing about running is you do have to get moving pretty fast in a no wind situation, but really the motor's pushing you. Once you get moving a little bit, the motor's pushing you. You're not having to exert yourself running, and the wings kind of holding you up. So it's just a matter of shuffling your feet, keeping them under you, keeping your balance, if you will, and getting into the air. So here I got up this morning. There's my cousin's house. The field I'm launching from is right out next to his place. House off to a little bit to the left is my folks' place where I grew up, my childhood home where I grew up. I would have launched from there, but there's a little bit more of a hill, vertical relief there. So visited them obviously, and here's my Aunt Margaret's place. She's got a nice little pond. She's got really kind of an ideal paramotor launching landing zone. Big open field out back of her house there. I buzzed her that morning. She didn't even know. I guess they were still in bed, but didn't even know I was out there that morning. Here's an antenna tower from my childhood. Kind of brings back memories. I know a couple teenagers in the 80s that might have climbed to the top of that tower. The tower is fairly close to the city lake. That's Lake Tecumseh, I guess, or at least the city lake of Tecumseh. Um, Tidbit of random information. There's a little peninsula you see right there at the bottom of the screen sticking out, jutting out into the water. Pretty sure that's where they would always set up the fireworks, where they shoot the fireworks off for the big displays on the 4th of July weekend, and spectators all along the right side of the lake there, which I guess that'd be the east side. Here, cruise on up a little closer to the big city of Shawnee. We're just south of Shawnee. It's the North Canadian River, and you can see I got some morning river fog that's still in the air. Just made it. Just really enjoy flying around that stuff. Shawnee feed mill in the distance. The big white buildings and silos, I think. But I'm going to focus on the river here. I think that's probably a rail line bridge down below me, and you can see the fog along the river. Man, I was really tempted to get down and fly into that. Started thinking, I don't have my flotation on. I'd taken it off because I was hauling the paramotor on the back of the pickup on the trip to get there, and you don't want to be driving in rain and have the flotation come off. But as you can see, I went ahead and went for it. I made sure that I was safe where I could coast down to one side or the other of the bank, kind of some of the sandbars out in the middle. Occasionally I could see those. River's pretty darn shallow anyway, but just couldn't resist flying over the water and along some of that river fog. Again, you can kind of see me to being safe, hopping over to the edge of the bank, one of the bank or the other. And I guess here I'll hop across to some of the sandbars, a bit of bar hopping maybe in my hometown or home where the area where I grew up. I probably could have done this for quite a bit longer, but eventually decided it was time to go play on the railroad tracks. And here I'll slow down a bit of footage. This is where I was getting set up to slide down the rails, and I got a little bit closer to that bumper, I think you call it, on the end of the rail line there than I intended. But obviously I kept a decent distance. But one of those things gets your attention. The other thing, here I'm trying to do a bit of a foot drag or rail slide, foot slide, whatever you want to call it. One thing, I was really glad I had a nice sturdy pair of leather shoes on, because occasionally I would bump into a spot where I don't know if it was a bolt or just a spot in the track where maybe they were a little bit further apart, but every once in a while I get banged on the foot a little bit. And again, I wouldn't want to do that certainly with any open-toed or open-top shoes, but definitely if you're going to do this and indulge in a bit of a rail slide, you definitely want to have a good pair of shoes on. And thankfully I did this particular morning. I'll speed up the rest of my rail sliding to squeeze it in a few seconds, just to show off how much I did. That's part of making these videos, is a little bit of showing off. Speaking of showing off, the other thing I got to do while I'm flying always is find a spot along a country road where I can just cruise alongside some of the cars going by. And it's basically the mentality, I think, is, hey, look at me, aren't I doing something cool? It's really kind of childish, but hey, I'm not immune from it. Here's a golf course. Normally I'd stay away from it, but I was on the edge of a field, kind of the back nine out there, the edge of the golf course, and it was clear that there was nobody out, at least anywhere close to this far on the course, nobody playing. So kind of surprised. I guess it was a pretty cool morning. This was in April when this footage was shot, and up in Oklahoma, I guess not any golfers out. So made a trip down one of the back nines and then back off to some of the farm fields for a little bit of shadow chasing, and eventually return to my LZ, being my landing zone or launch site, I guess. So a couple more sites to reminisce on and visit on my flight. There's one of my old high schools. I didn't graduate from this one, but I went into the school system for maybe 10.5 years, grew up with most of the folks there. You see a baseball field. I played a few games on that. Most of the other fields weren't in place back when I was in school here, but yeah, there's the old Tecumseh High School site. Here I'll stop by another place, thriving shopping center in my youth. TG&Y opened up their big store before Walmart got popular. It was a big thing. That was it, with the black roof there and the rundown empty parking lot. It's just an abandoned building now, I think, from the looks of it. But and I didn't get my landing on video here. Camera battery ran down, but you can spot my pickup out in the middle of the field there. That's the landing site. So we'll end it there. Have a good one, everybody.